I am going to talk a little bit about this book by Milan Kundera. The title of the book is Slowness. It is a short novel, about 130 pages, this edition that I have, translated to English by Linda Asher. I am very grateful to my small reading group. We just had a conversation about this book, and talking with them really enriched my reading, my understanding of this little book. When you read a book and discuss it with other people, you realize the book opens up to you with the help of the fellow reader's perspective. And a lot opened up to me. This was the second time that I was reading this book. The first time, a couple of years ago, I read it when I was living in Hong Kong. I read it after reading a couple of other books by Kundera. This time it was more isolated from the rest of the Kundera corpus. But I do see it as an extension of his other works. So you might, I think, if you want to get a better representation of what his writing is like as a novelist, I would say The Unbearable Lightness of Being or Immortality or The Joke, those would be better places to start to get Kundera as a storyteller. And then move to a shorter book like this, where he encapsulates his thoughts, his ideas, the way he approaches reality. Kundera, when you read him, you realize very soon that he is a very sensitive soul. And the question, maybe one of the biggest question for sensitive people, people who have an extra level of sensitivity, when the world presents itself to them, when reality pushes itself onto them with higher degree of intensity, the question for them is, for us maybe, is how to deal with it, how to come to terms with that, with the intensity of reality, how to find some level of peace with it, how to deal with it effectively without being overwhelmed, without being devastated, without being defeated, without giving in to defeatism or pessimism. And Kundera, with his works, he shows us, he actually shows his way out of defeatism, his way out of a simplistic nihilism, a simplistic pessimism. He shows us how to laugh, how to joke around about all the brute facts of life, the annoying, the irritating parts of our shared reality, especially as a sensitive person. You kind of have to find a way of dancing around that. And that's a way of dealing. That's a way of coping. Let me read a little bit from page 114 and 115 of this edition. It's a little bit out of context, but I want to give you a sample of the ideas that are operating throughout this short novel. So he writes, the degree of speed is directly proportional to the intensity of forgetting. From that equation, we can deduce various corollaries. For instance, this one. Our period is given over to the demon of speed, and that is the reason it so easily forgets its own self. Now, I would reverse that statement and say our period is obsessed by the desire to forget. And it is to fulfill that desire that it gives over to the demon of speed. It picks up the pace to show us that it no longer wishes to be remembered, that it is tired of itself, sick of itself, that it wants to blow out the tiny, trembling flame of memory. So immediately, things like TikTok or short videos on YouTube came to mind as I was reading that. If you agree with Kundera's sentiment, one of the things that is associated with that kind of speedy TikTok style, short, fast-paced style of communicating or pseudo-communicating, one of the associates of that, one of the motives of that is forgetting, which is underlying this fast-paced. Is it true that people who rush around, who rush with everything, who are always impatiently rushing from one task to another task, who say everything and do everything as fast as possible, is it true that they are driven by a desire to forget, to repress? One of the One of the many narratives that we read about in this book is a narrative of an older man who has these memories of being infatuated, being in love, having been in love with a woman who is a filmmaker. He has a special nickname for her, Immaculata, describing this pure beauty that he fell in love with. But now, at an older age, he's at a stage where he's over that. He doesn't want to have. He has no desire for any contact, any communication, any remembrance of her. He simply wants to forget that embarrassing memory, that embarrassing bit of his personal history of having been in love with her. Just wants to forget that, but continues every time he does remember her a little bit. He continues to remember her with that same nickname of Immaculata, which gives us this point that by the persistence, by failing to remember, by wanting to forget, by that adamant desire to forget identity, history, we are in fact freezing things, fixating on just one limited way of feeling about something, like a person that we want to forget. When we remember them, we open ourselves to revising them, giving a new name to them, maybe giving another name other than Immaculata, maybe using the proper name, using the actual name of the person. When you intentionally keep someone or something as part of your past, as part of your memory, when you remember them, you give yourself the chance, in other words, to handle them differently, give new meaning with them, to fit them in a new way as part of your narrative, and maybe to adjust your narrative around them. Adjust the entire narrative. Why not? So, what else to say about this book? Everybody who was participating in the reading group discussion today, where everybody was generally positive about the book. Everybody agreed that you can't summarize the book as a kind of self-help style book that, yeah, we are too speedy right now, so it's better to slow down. No, it's not as simple as that. There are contradictions. The consequences of speeding up and slowing down are complex and paradoxical and mixed. So it is not the case that with speed you get this, without speed you get that, even though the passage that I just read for you might suggest that, but the story is much more complex than that. One way to capture the sentiment, or try to capture the sentiment of this book, is what is enabled by slowness. Slowness itself is not necessarily a destination or a goal, but there are certain things that are enabled, are made possible only through slowness. So slowness is like a home base. What you get by slowing down is kind of return, maybe a temporary return to a home base, where from that home base, from that slowness, place of slowness, you can depart again and approach the facts of your life, the realities of your life, in a different way, or in the same way, with a different pace, with a different style, with a different emotion. Every emotion that we have gives itself to us as the final message. Let's say you wake up one morning and you don't want to go to school, or you don't want to go to work, or you are invited to a party, or you don't want to go. You have this emotion, you have this affective attitude in response to something out there. And this attitude presents itself not as temporary, it presents itself as final and something that is always there. The ultimate case of this is ecstasy. A moment of ecstasy, which is a very intense emotional moment, presents itself to us as eternal, as transcending time, transcending here and now, time and place. It's always like ecstasy. This is what life is. Like people who get high with certain drugs, they report back to us that it's like a portal opened up to me, and now I realize what is real. I get what life is about. Not like at that moment I had this feeling. No. So emotions give themselves to us, or present the world to us, as transcending time, which is a trick. Maybe it's a trick that emotions play on us. So that moment when you wake up, you don't want to go to work, or you don't want to go to school, the fact of the matter is that it is that moment that you're feeling that way. Maybe later on in the afternoon, you're feeling very positive about being at work. Maybe you go to the party that you felt resistance about, And later in the party, you feel very happy that you decided to go. But that emotion doesn't let you know that it is temporary. So slowness is something that can help us realize the temporariness of certain experiences. The temporariness, the contingency, and the fact that these experiences and our judgments of them and our way of interpreting them are open to revision, open to updating, and regarding differently, different way of regarding them. All right, I'll stop there. Great book. I'll recommend it along with all other Kundera's works. He's an incredibly important person in my life personally. How lucky we are to be able to read the works of Milan Kundera, and having found him, first of all, being able to appreciate him. It's an amazing privilege. I believe my friend Mike Glaudemans, who runs the channel Mike G's Eclectic Reads, he might do a review of this book as well. I will retroactively put a link. So if he has done that right now as you're watching this, the link will be below in this description. There's one other person I'd like to mention. There's a person who I really enjoy watching on YouTube, another person that I've recently discovered. His channel's name is Grant Loves Books. And he's also somebody who has expressed his appreciation of Milan Kundera, and notably The Unbearable Lightness of Being. I highly recommend checking out Grant's channel. I would put a link to his review and discussion of The Unbearable Lightness of Being, which I really liked listening to his perspective on the novel, the importance of emotions, the way Kundera allows sexuality to be incorporated into his storytelling, the way he pays attention to sexuality, and how sexuality is not always mixed with intimacy. In fact, a lot of times he talks about sexuality to highlight our failures at intimacy, at true intimacy. Anyways, so Grant loves books, and we love Grant, and Mike G's possible review. Both will be provided below. The schedule of my following reading group discussions will also be provided. The link to those will also be provided below. If you have any comments, I would love to get them. If you have any thoughts on this novel, please let me know. Comments below. And otherwise, take care, and I will speak with you in future videos.